It's been about a week since investigators trying to solve the murder of 4 University of Idaho students narrowed down a suspect, tracked him down 2,500 miles away, and took him into custody 2 days later. Bryan Kohberger was arrested early Friday morning at his parents' home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. And after sitting in the Monroe County Jail over the holiday weekend, Kohberger waived his extradition hearing yesterday. And this morning, he boarded a plane headed to Idaho. Today, members of the Moscow community and dozens of media outlets await his arrival at the Latah County Jail, and one of those is our own Morgan Romero. Morgan?
Brian, same story we've been telling you throughout the day. We are still waiting for the Moscow murder suspect, Bryan Kohberger, to arrive here in Moscow from Pennsylvania. We are expecting him to land at the Moscow Pullman Airport from an airplane later this evening. We also know, according to the Latah County Sheriff, that he will be here at this courthouse, which is the same building as the jail. He faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 felony count of burglary. We know when he arrives in Idaho, he will also be served with an arrest warrant. According to Idaho criminal rules, Kohberger has 24 hours from the time that he has served that arrest warrant to make an initial appearance in front of a magistrate judge in this judicial district in Latah County. We are also waiting on the probable cause affidavit, the PCA, to be unsealed in this case. The Latah County clerk told me today they don't typically unseal the PCA until they have the physical arrest warrant back in their possession and that arrest warrant has been served and returned. And typically, they get warrants back at the same time as that initial appearance I talked about. If and when the PCA is unsealed, police say we will learn details of this case and why investigators believe Kohberger is the one who committed these crimes. So again, that could potentially happen tomorrow, but important to note, judges have full discretion on whether to seal or unseal any court documents in their case. They also have full discretion over what happens inside their courtroom. For background, Kohberger is accused of stabbing 4 University of Idaho students to death at a house just off campus back on November 13th. This story making international headlines for the last 7 weeks. Authorities here said Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves were all likely asleep at the time of the attack. When they went to arrest Kohberger at his family home in Pennsylvania early in the morning on December 30th last week, as Brian said, law enforcement broke several windows and doors as part of their tactical plan to get inside the home. Police say the FBI tracked Kohberger for several days leading up to his arrest, and they say he and his dad drove 2,500 miles from Pullman to Pennsylvania in a white Hyundai Elantra in mid-December. Kohberger was a student, a graduate student and a TA at Washington State University just across the border in Pullman, where he was studying criminology. At his court hearing in Monroe County yesterday, Kohberger waived his extradition rights. That means, as we've been covering, he willingly returned to the state of Idaho. Early this morning, we know he was transferred from the Monroe County Jail to Pennsylvania State Police custody. That was confirmed from Monroe County Jail administrators. But when I asked whether he was on a plane headed to Idaho this morning, state police said they cannot provide more information or comment on his extradition status due to security reasons. However, we have been following a plane very closely at KTVB that is registered to Pennsylvania State Police. It's on a flight tracker site. That plane heading west from Scranton, Pennsylvania. At last check, just before this newscast, it was in Wyoming. It stopped a couple of times, apparently. However, we do not definitively know that Kohberger is on that specific plane. Once Kohberger gets here, the Latah County Sheriff says that they will evaluate him, and then after that evaluation by jail staff, they'll determine his housing classification. Earlier this week, Kohberger's extradition attorney in Pennsylvania, not his defense attorney, just the individual that was handling his extradition to Idaho, said, quote, his client is eager to be exonerated. But Brian, I talk about that probable cause affidavit because that is really where we will learn how and if Kohberger had any connections to any of the 4 victims in this case.
And that may be the only way we do find out any more information about this, because yesterday a magistrate judge issued a gag order in this case, right?
Yeah, a magistrate judge here in Latah County issued, it's called a non-dissemination order in formal terms, but really it's a gag order. Moscow police sent out a press release saying that they are no longer allowed to comment on this case, and that also applies to any and all law enforcement and investigators who have any information about this case, as well as attorneys or any parties representing the attorneys, so the defense attorney or the prosecuting attorney. So we will not be getting information from them. I will say I've reached out to the sheriff's office. I'm sure several other media outlets have reached out just about their plans for once Kohberger Kohberger gets to this jail. And as I mentioned earlier, they sent out a press release saying what they're planning on doing. And I think they're giving sort of blanket statements. When I've talked to the Latah County clerk earlier, they're really speaking in general terms about what happens in felony cases versus speaking specifically about what's going to happen once Kohberger gets here. And again, Moscow police saying they can't comment, so we're not expecting to hear from them as well. That gag order is going to be in effect, the judge said, until a verdict is reached in this case, which is going to be potentially months from now.
Exactly. Okay, so a lot of people interested in this case, a lot of media, even some people in the community. Latah County Courthouse isn't a big courthouse. I think there's 3 courtrooms there. How's this going to play out tomorrow when he actually gets into court? It's going to be crowded.
It is going to be crowded. Again, if that hearing is tomorrow, which we are expecting it to be 24 hours after today, there is so much national media attention on this case, so much national media presence and local media presence here in Moscow. Just on the other side of this building, they've had to block off sidewalks because there's so many people. But in these courtrooms, very, very small. Max occupancy, I'm told from the Latah County clerk, is about 75 people. And truly, the victims' families, the defendants' families, anybody interested in this that has a direct connection to this case is going to likely have reserved seating. And then there's going to be pooled cameras. We know there's going to be 2 pooled cameras for video recording as well as 1 still photography camera. And then we'll all have to share video from those cameras and photos from those cameras. And then media, public, first come, first served basis. So we're going to have to get here early in the morning, if it happens tomorrow, hours before the hearing itself in order to get a seat.
Yeah, I can't imagine you're going to want to be too far away from that courtroom when the things start to go down for tomorrow. Thank you very much, Morgan. I really appreciate that. Kind of lays things out of what will be happening over the next 24 hours or so. Thank you.